Terence Crawford knows that if he beats me, there's nobody else in the world that can beat him. I think he knows that I'm the only one in the world that can beat him.
Hypocrisy.
Greatness can come from anywhere.
I draw inspiration from the Filipino people and to God and my family. Hard work is the most difficult things in boxing.
Let's get into it.
Terence Crawford is a real one, y'all. Even if they didn't have a rematch clause, Bud said, you know what? Errol Spence was an intricate piece to making this fight possible for myself and for the fans. So even without a rematch clause, I will still give him the opportunity. After everything to Bud, he had to wait. He was always criticized and ostracized by his peers, by the fans, by the media, like he was the one dragging his feet. And we seen when he fought Errol that Terence Crawford has been ready. I told you guys this, people was in the comments talking about something I was crazy, but I told y'all, Bud, he's been training for Errol Spence ever since he came to 147. He knew Errol was the man at 147. He never talked bad about Errol. He never said Errol was a bad fighter, but he knew that he was going to have to get past Errol at 147 in order to make his mark at 147 and beyond. He said that after the Jermell Charlo fight, he's willing to retire from the sport of boxing. And that's huge. He said, he went on record and said that he want to fight Spence and he wants to fight Jermell Charlo. He's on the record for that. But this is a new development because if he fights Jermell Charlo, keep in mind this is 154. And when he was on Sway's Universe, he said that if I move up to 154, I'm not coming back down. So that means at some point the Bud is going to have to relinquish those titles. So Jerron Boots Ennis, who's the IBF mandatory, 147 is going to be on fire yet again because all these guys are going to get an opportunity to fight for these belts. And Jerron Boots Ennis is number one. He's up first. So it's going to be Boots against whatever. If Keith Thurman wants a title, if he wants to be a champion again, now Keith Thurman is definitely going to have to step up and fight somebody like Jerron Boots Ennis because he's not going to get that shot at Terence Crawford. Once Bud goes to 154, he said it himself, he's not coming back down. So that means 154 is the new hunting ground for Terence Crawford. He's going to have that rematch at 154 with Errol Spence. Errol Spence, he said he wants to run it back. He even told his son he wants to run it back. So Errol Spence, in his heart, he wants that rematch. He wants to redeem himself. We all know as far as skill sets, Errol Spence, in my opinion, he doesn't have the skill set to beat Terence Crawford. So that rematch, is strictly about redemption. Errol wants to redeem himself. That's his first loss. Not only was that his first loss, but he lost terribly. Terence Crawford just beat him up. He landed over 50% of his power shots. His jab was dominant. Terence Crawford, he told everybody before the fight, I'm better than Errol in every way. And he showed that on fight night. It's one thing when a fighter talks himself through a build-up, through a lead-up to a fight, but when you show up on fight night and you do everything that you said, that's not hype. That's skill. That's pedigree. That's talent. That's conviction. That is pound for pound. And Terence Crawford is pound for pound the top fighter in the sport of boxing right now. Charlo said, after you fight my boy, we can line it up. We can run it. So, Terence Crawford at 154, his future is looking like this. And it's pretty simple. It's clear cut at this point. It's really nothing to speculate about. He fights Errol Spence, and then he fights Jermell Charlo, and then he retires. He said that he will retire after fighting Jermell Charlo out of his own mouth. This is not the pundits, the reporters, podcasts, fans, media, anybody. Terence Crawford said this himself on the Sean Porter podcast, the Porter Way podcast. He said that himself. So Terence Crawford at this point, he's 35, he'll be 36. By the time he gets these fights and finishes these fights, hypothetically, Terence Crawford could be 37. That's a great age to retire from the sport of boxing. You got all your faculties, you got plenty of money. Matter of fact, as far as the money, because a lot of people like to talk about the dollars and cents, Bud already said I'm good. He pulled the Floyd Mayweather. He said, I made smart investments. I don't need boxing right now. But he wants to continue to solidify his legacy, and I respect that. So if he can fight Spence, beat Spence in that rematch, and if he beats Spence even worse than he did in the first fight, oh my God. And then he goes on to the fight Jermell Charlo, and he beats Jermell Charlo and becomes undisputed, a 3-weight undisputed world champion. I mean, Terence Crawford, he positions himself to be pound for pound, possibly the best welterweight of all times. He's already gone in history books. But if he can accomplish that, having a successful rematch and at this point, title defenses against Errol Spence, and then fights Jermell Charlo and beats Jermell Charlo and becomes undisputed at 54, Terence Crawford is pound for pound the best fighter in the sport of boxing. He's already just coming fresh off of that win, the pound for pound best fighter in the sport of boxing. But depending upon how Jermell Charlo and Canelo fight goes, who knows? Canelo can put himself back in that conversation. He could put himself back on top. And Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford, that fight, who knows? That fight can happen. Bud already said if Canelo's willing to come down to 160, who knows, 158, we can make that fight happen. So Terence Crawford, you talking about Spence, Charlo, Canelo. So Terence Crawford, he can possibly have the next 3 fights for Terence Crawford could not only be his last fights, but some of the biggest fights yet to be had in the sport of boxing. Him facing Spence at a rematch, going to do numbers. Him facing Jermell Charlo for undisputed at 154, going to do numbers. Him fighting Saul Canelo Alvarez, even if it is a catchweight, is going to do huge, huge numbers. And after that, why not walk away from the sport? You ain't got to do nothing else. You ain't got to fight bouts, even though everybody would love to see that fight. But at this point, I got to come to the realization that Jerron Boots Ennis and Terence Crawford, that fight may not happen. We want it to happen, but it may not happen. Boots is probably going to take over 147 without fighting Spence or Crawford. That's just how it looks. That's all I got. Talking to you, stand up as your boy. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You already know how I play. Share the truth.
Fatality.